Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 169, recording on Thursday, May 21st. The guest for you today is the very familiar, always enjoyable to talk Vikings football with, Pete Bercich, who is obviously on the radio as the color guy with Paul Allen on KFAN. Pete also does some work on his own YouTube channel, Eye in the Sky. He has done some film evaluation for the Vikings Entertainment Radio Network. But we got into everything. We talked draft and a lot of the draftees at the top. We got into the quarterback situation, Kyler Murray, and then we ended it. I thought it was awesome by Pete. He rattled off some numbers that he thinks are just critical for 2026. So had a really good time. Always enjoy the conversation and felt like I learned a lot. It kind of centered my mind well as we enter this summer. So hope you guys enjoy it. If you're new here and watch on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate that. We've had a blast building this channel. And building this, this podcast 2 times a week. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or iHeart, please follow us. Please rate us. Please review us with stars that you can give on some of these platforms, and we appreciate it. The show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. Tim Siegley, Charlie Anderson, and Aaron Siegley. These guys are... they're huge Vikings fans. They're invested in this community, and they've supported the podcast from the get-go, so I can't thank them enough. And their online banking platform is my go-to. The show is also sponsored by Pro MN Athletics. 3 guys, Kurt, Graham, and Tanner, they came together a couple years ago, and they're like, how can we lift the tide of youth football development in Minnesota? They have academies. They have summer 7-on-7 leagues. They really have kind of like a mentorship program with former college athletes on how to progress through middle school ball, high school ball, and into college. So Pro MN, their information is in the description. Cannot recommend them enough. If your kid loves football, wants to play football, if you have friends' kids who love it and want to compete at a high level. So Pro MN, please check them out. With that, let's hop right into our conversation with Pete Bercich. All right, Pete, welcome back to the show. It's been a minute. I was like, who have I not,
Yes,
I haven't talked to Pete in a while, so, we got to make it happen. So that's, how are you?
I'm good. I am good. It's amazing how things have changed in so many ways, but the just go. It's pretty constant from when the season's over. You get a little break, and then you got the Senior Bowl stuff, and then GMs get fired and things, and then you have the combine, and then you've got and then it goes to the draft, and you have free agency sprinkled in there, and then you have the schedule release, and I think finally now, I mean, they're practicing, so to speak, but right now it's kind of like, it's quiet. So, the NFL's good. They got a good 10-month program here.
Yeah, I think they know what they're doing. I want to get into draft, quarterback, bunch of different subjects. AI, we could even dive into potentially, but I want to start because you mentioned it, the schedule release. Like, did you have any big thoughts coming out of seeing what the actual schedule was like? It's a silly event. I thought I'm excited for it, but what if anything caught your mind seeing those games revealed?
You have, it's division heavy at the beginning and at the end. I think another big factor will be the Bears and their schedule. It's going to be a little bit more difficult than it was a year ago. However, I think in net rest days or whatever, they'll be well rested against the opponents that they play. Detroit has the last 3 games of the year, division games on the road. Those are the things I think that regardless of injury matter. And that's kind of the big thing with all of this is you look at the string of games that you have. And they could be, you look at them now today at this minute, but everything could change with one guy going down. So, Heavy on the road early on in the season, and then I think 5 of the last 7 games at home toward the end of the year. 2 games in January. Bizarre, going to New York to play the Jets on January 3rd, and it's not the last game of the year. So it's wild how you have 3 weeks of preseason, then a 2-week break. Then you have 3 games in September, and then you get a break. And then you have 3 games in October, and then all of a sudden, like November, December, and into January, it seems like for everybody, it's very football. The football heavy stuff has been pushed to that second half of the season, so to speak. International games going to Mexico. That'll be interesting. It's just a long road trip, I think, because we're not leaving the central time zone. So it's gonna be wild to be in a different country, but not have the whole time zone clomp that you normally get. And teams have to get used to it. They have to figure out their method, which I think the Vikings are ahead of the curve a little bit on that because it's the wave of the future. The NFL announced they're not protecting home. Teams used to be able to protect home games. They had 2 a year. I don't think, and from what I understand, they're no longer going to allow them to do that. So the NFL can pluck the Viking-Packer game in September and stick it anywhere they want. They could put it in Ireland. They could put it in Australia. I mean, theoretically. So games aren't protected. They're really pushing the international growth, and we'll get our first game in Australia this year, and we'll see.
I'm glad to be not going to Australia. I'm not going to lie. It would be cool to go, but after the 2-week, it would be after the 2-week trip. I mean, last year probably need a nice little reprieve. Mexico City will be interesting. Absolutely, the altitude is something that I will be curious just how they try to counteract that. But then as far as the schedule, that was kind of, divisional start, that stood out to me. And then the midseason stretch culminating in Mexico City against the 49ers. That was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is back in the day, you would have used that preseason game in Denver for your starters to be like, all right, we'll get out there and run around, see if it's any different, what it feels like, but they're all going to be watching the game from the sideline, so it's not really going to matter.
I haven't talked to you about the draft, about the team's 9 picks, heavy on the interior. I've done a lot of conversation. The people watching and listening to the show probably are tired of my thoughts on Caleb Banks and Jake Golday and Dominique Orange and Jacoby Thomas and all these guys. Just to start for you, what was your thought on the heaviness in terms of emphasis on the interior, on the swing at 18 with Caleb Banks? You watched the film of a lot of these guys. Who has really stood out to you? I want your top of the line thoughts on what those 3 massive days were in your mind.
Yeah. You look, getting Caleb Banks where we did is a no-brainer. Assuming he's healthy and he's going to be able to play. The foot, I think, kept him or made him slide. His lack of, it's not that he was injured. The problem is the junior year was getting good, so everyone's like, all right, we expect this big senior season out of him, and they just never got it. He got hurt, and I don't even know the number of times and the number of surgeries that he had. And that's kind of that's the story to it. And it's very, I've tried to look things up and to figure out exactly, okay, he had spring ball and then got hurt, and then summer, and then the surgery, and then, played early in the season and then got hurt again and then came back and then got hurt at the combine. It's like, so there's this whole, that's something that obviously the Vikings have to sift through. And it's like a whole nother, but that's why he was there. The Vikings, using the medical advice and the people that they have, took a look at it and said, okay. And I do think there are some things that I've heard that, they can fix. And I'm excited to see what this kid can do, but he's so big. He's so fast. Going to have to learn to play with his pads a little bit lower. It's not like he's just going to step out there and be all pro. He's got some work to do. But that's what you want in the first round, is a guy who could possibly be a generational type talent, and he has that ability. And then you look at Jake Golday, and it's kind of like the complete opposite. Like, he is as safe, I think, of a bet as you can get, only because remarkable height, speed, quickness, and then you watch him on film. He was a 0-star recruit, basketball player, goes to Central Arkansas or Arkansas State or one of the Central Arkansas, I think, and starts as a D lineman. And then they move him from a defensive lineman to an inside linebacker spot, which I want everyone out there listening to know that is incredibly difficult to do. Okay. I think the kid, because he's a basketball player and an athlete, period, is used to seeing, kind of being on 2 feet and seeing things happening in front of him and reacting to them. But then he goes to Cincinnati and they put him in space. They rush him. He can do everything. Okay. But what he does best right now is being an off the ball linebacker. I mean, he's more of a Blake Cashman than he is an Andrew Van Ginkel right now. That's just right now. Obviously, they're going to build into what he does and what he can do better. He's shown physicality, but he's going to have to be more physical at this level, and he's got to grow. He's going to grow into his body. I mean, he's very smart kid, very instinctive, and I think that's what surprised me the most is when you take a D lineman, and it's like 10, 15 years ago when you'd have a small defensive end and then teams started playing 3-4s and they're like, well, maybe he could be a 3-4 outside linebacker. And they're like, well, can he drop? Right? Can he drop into coverage? I mean, D linemen don't do that. They don't cover. They don't drop. They don't know zones, and they have no awareness. It's see ball, get ball, right? They look at the shoulder of their key, and if it goes this way, they do this. If it goes that way, they do that. If it goes back, they pass rush. That's it. That's all they got. In the grand scheme of things, it's a very simple, but things happen quickly, and they have to be that way. So, seeing him and the way he could process and all that, I'm excited to see what he can do. Dominique Orange, I think he played a role in that 3-3-5 Iowa State defense. I think if he picks up his intensity level and works on his technique, their job there was kind of eat up space, and on pass plays, they would just they'd let everybody else do their thing. So it's going to be a change for him in that regard. But the size and the strength and the quickness, they're all there. And, he's going to have to embrace unlike Javon Hargrave, embrace fundamentally what they want to do up front. And he could be perfect for what we're trying to do. Caleb Tiernan, I mean, he's safe, smart kid. He just needs some time to get in there. And we'll see what he can do. I'm excited about him just as a depth play, big bodied guy. Jacoby Thomas is, I think,
have you watched the film
of him where he could be? Yeah, I've watched film on him. Yeah, he's all over the place. He's very instinctive. I think if you look, it's kind of like, let's go back in time a little bit with Tony Dungy and Monty Kiffin. And they realized, because of their scheme and how the scheme worked out, and they were quick, jet up front, fast linebackers, gap control, no two gap, and none of that stuff. You could get by with a smaller, faster defensive end or inside. Eddie McDaniel played Mike linebacker in our scheme, and he was 220 pounds. But he could hit and he could run. This kid is a scheme fit for Flores as much as I've seen anybody. Just with Miami doing what they do up front and just having them backpedal, looking at the quarterback, watching the receiver, breaking on the football. He's not afraid to hit. He can blitz. He's has all the traits that you want. And I think he's a guy where you just plug him in, where Josh Metellus has been, or you can plug him in, where Harrison Smith has been. Maybe not a deep middle. He maybe not be the best deep middle center fielder type safety. But we get a lot of mileage out of our versatility of our safeties. And in our defense, corners play safety, safeties play corner. I mean, they move all over the place. And his skill set is very unique. And I think because he didn't run a 40 at the combine, it was just at his pro day. So that 40-yard dash number is a little, he's just a football player, man. He's just a good football player. And I'm very, very excited to watch. He's one of the guys I'm looking forward to seeing most.
That was one of my questions. That was going to be one of my
that wild card things.
Yeah, one of my questions was going to be of the late round guys who you're or later round guys who intrigued you the most. And I mean, for me, I've said that from the get go of just that guy. You watch the tape of the aggressiveness, the physicality, the violence, where he lines up, the ability to read and be instinctive. Like he's talking all the time on the tape, which just fits what, the dictating aggression that Brian Flores wants. So I can't wait on that guy. I also thought the point you mentioned on Jake Golday, like that's been the crazy thing talking, and I'm hopping around obviously, but talking to some of his former coaches of like, why would you have thought that you could transition a guy from being an edge player to playing off the ball? Like that was a major question that I had. And a lot of the coaches were like, he had the ability to process, to read things, to navigate, to see angles.
Right.
And you mentioned the basketball background. Like he was a high-level basketball player in Memphis where he kind of grew up. And I have to think those things translate. But I can't imagine, or I wondered over the course of your career, like how many times would you have ever been like, let's take this edge rusher and move him off the ball? It just can't be many instances where that makes a lot of sense.
Let me give you an example. Heath Farwell. All right, I know he was a free agent guy, but Heath Farwell, he was one of 3 linebackers that came out of San Diego State. That's that year. I think it was 2004 or 2005. I can't remember. But Kirk Morrison was one of them. He was an unbelievably good football player. And then Keith McCoy was the other kid. He's a Philadelphia kid, I think. So everybody's watching film on those two. And you had Heath Farwell, who's 5'10", right? 5'11", playing outside linebacker. That's what he played. And you're watching him and you're like, that's not going to work in the NFL. He goes to the Sombrero Bowl in New Mexico somewhere. And he's playing middle linebacker. And you watch the film and he's seeing guards pull, doing certain things. So along those lines, Alec, this is the deal. There are certain traits that cannot be taught. You either have them or you do not. You see it with DBs in taking angles to the football. Like I think of guys like Willie Offord, unbelievably good player, but would just sometimes take bad angles. If you see a guy taking bad angles on a tackle, overrunning tackles, or a bad angle on the football when it's in the air, that is very difficult to cure. For a linebacker, if you can't see guard pulls and if you can't see what the line's doing in front of you, like the back steps one way, the guard goes the other, then you have to follow. If you can't do that, you're going to struggle at linebacker your entire career. And it's one of those things where very difficult skill to develop. Very difficult. That's why when you watch Golday, he played off the ball linebacker at Cincinnati. He played outside linebacker. He played pretty much kind of a defensive end type. They put him everywhere. And that's what's so surprising. Again, a guy with a defensive lineman background moved, you talk about the de-evolution of mankind, right? And in college, we would always talk about that. It would be, you'd be like a linebacker, then you'd go to the D-line. And if you didn't make it at the D-line, you would go to the O-line.
Yeah.
And if you didn't make it at the O-line, you'd be on the bus line and you'd be out of town, right? D-line, O-line, bus line. That's you know what I mean? It doesn't go the other way. You don't see an O-lineman switch to D-line, switch to outside linebacker, switch to, you know what I mean? It doesn't go that way. There's no one out there who does it. And I think Goldie's kind of an example of that. So he does the difficult things very well. That's what gives you hope. That if the kid can do those things, it's just I think we've seen it. I think we've seen it ourselves with Dallas Turner.
Mm-hmm.
The game's finally slowing down a little bit for Dallas Turner, and now his athleticism starting to show. 8 sacks, 7, 8 sacks last year. Most of them
Yeah.
second half of the season, middle half, second half. That matters. The best way to make a great athlete or an elite athlete average is to make them think, have to think on the snap of the football instead of just reacting. And I think Dallas Turner has finally he's finally able to use his athleticism because the game's happening a little bit more quickly. And for Golday, they're going to inundate him with a lot of things, his mobility, and I think injury, right? Guys are going to miss here and there. They're going to be able to move this kid around, and what makes you laugh makes you cry. He's versatile, but the poor kid's going to be learning a bunch of different spots, but that will pay off in the long run.
One of the things I wanted to ask you on this show, and I want to get to the quarterback in a second, but I was thinking about this over the last couple weeks, or I've been thinking about it, and because this was such a coach, I mean, so many of these players fit scheme, and I mean, it's pretty clear to see. Part of me wondered from an evaluation standpoint, from the coaching perspective, over the course of your time in the league, like, as you got the list of guys to watch in college in the spring and you evaluated, and I'm sure there were guys you loved that you hit on, I'm sure there were guys you loved that you missed on. I kind of wonder, like, when you missed,
Yeah.
or when you evaluated guys and it was like, I love this dude, and it just didn't work out. Like, what was the why behind that for you? If you can think through, like, your Rolodex.
Yeah. Injury is always a big thing. Guys that just for whatever reason struggle to stay healthy and they can't not just be on the field, but you got to be on the field consistently, right? You can't be on the field for 3, off for 2, on for 4, off for 2. It doesn't work that way to get where you need to go. So injuries is a big part of it. I think the other half of that equation is the ability to carry game plan, the ability to operate within the system of a defense to the point where it becomes second nature. So when you're out there lining up, you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're looking at the offense going, okay, they're lining up this way. This is what they like to do. Your brain, and Jack Del Rio taught me that when I showed up as a rookie. He knew where he was going to go to the point where this is easy. I'm thinking about what the down and distance and what the offense is trying to do. That's it. And that requires a ton of work. And Alec, it's above and beyond the weight room and getting the height and the weight and the speed and all the physical traits that you've got to build up over the years and the amount of work and all that. And you work and you work and you work to get drafted. And then all of a sudden you get stuck in this meeting room and now the work has just begun. And this is where it crosses over into the professionalism side of the game, where you can get through the day at practice on a Wednesday. Get through meaning you get there, you lift hard, you show up, you listen in meetings, you go out and you practice hard and everything, and then you're done, you do your treatment, and then you have a choice. You can go home, right? Or you can do a little bit more work. You can sit down and watch some film. You can do whatever you need to do. And younger players, that's very difficult for them to realize just kind of how far away they are. But at the same time, for them to realize how easy the game can get. I mean, how good there's nothing better than being a veteran, knowing what's going on, and then being able to go on the field with 100% confidence that you can execute whatever you see. That's when the game gets easy. That's when training camp gets easier, right? The hardest year of your life is your rookie season. It only gets easier mentally, from that point on. So that requires a special sort of discipline and desire that very few people have. And that desire can make up for a lot of shortcomings. Let's say if you're not tall enough, quite fast enough, quite big enough, whatever. If you have those, enough of the enoughs, you'll play a long time. But that's probably the biggest thing: injury and just the discipline, inability to operate in a system and be a professional about that. that keeps guys from being great.
Take a quick break in the middle of our conversation with Pete to talk about Great Clips. We introduced them on the previous week's show. Great Clips has a bunch of local salons in the Minneapolis area. You can go to the website, type in your zip code, find the nearest salon. You need shampoos, gels, clay to style your hair much better than I've styled mine because I don't have their clay yet and I need to go buy it. You can find that all at Great Clips. So we thank them for their support. They're going to be with us all throughout the fall. So you need a quick haircut. You need a good haircut. You need styling. They've got it. Great Clips. Appreciate their support. And it's got to be so, like, I always think about the draft and the uncertainty around it. Like, the evaluation process is so uncertain because how do you really discern that skill of discipline or mental aptitude or work ethic or what have you until you're seeing it every day over the course of time? And you can talk to coaches, and some of them probably tell truth, and some of them probably ride for their guys because it benefits them in the long run. But like that part of it for me, right, I think speaks to why this process is relentlessly uncertain.
My 2 cents on this, the Vikings drafted a lot of guys that came out to visit, right? The invites.
Yeah.
Remember that even coach was saying next year we may have to have a bunch of time. You can learn those things. You can learn those things by sitting down one-on-one with somebody and talking with them. And I remember you have a sheet full of questions to ask. I'm sitting down and I'm interviewing you as a prospective linebacker. I've got a sheet of questions here. I really don't care. I'll ask you, what's the most difficult thing in your life you've ever had to overcome? I really am not interested. I am, but stay with me.
Yeah.
What you say. Because it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it's the biggest thing in your life. Whether it's the death of somebody, it could be tragic. It could be, whatever, divorced parent. It could be all. All I'm looking for is how well you articulate what you say. And do you look me in the eye? Right? Do you sit up in your seat and engage, or do you go like this? Well, right?
Yeah.
And you go around and you ask everybody in the facility, hey, and Heath Farwell is my favorite story about this because it's like, Keith McCoy. Yeah, good kid, like him. All right, what about this guy? Yeah, good, like him. What about Heath Farwell? Oh, love Heath. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what they say. I can see it in their reaction. Head coaches in college, they're not going to tell you anything worthwhile. It's an absolute waste of time because they're recruiting and NIL and with the agents doing college guys. If word got out that they said this guy's, he's a little inconsistent in his work ethic, boom, forget it. You're never going to get another guy, right?
Absolutely right.
It may as well be a press conference, right? So you have to find ways of getting all this, all this, and it's just you got to go with your gut, and it's a science. And you look at these draft picks, and a lot of them, they talk about scheme fits and things like that. That's what you do once you get into this. Let's call it second, third round. That's what you do, right? Yeah. And that's where having a unique scheme pays off because you can get more value out of certain guys that may not fit somewhere else. Jake Golday may not be a great fit for a 4-3 team, right? That needs a will linebacker, or may not be the greatest Mike linebacker there is. He's really tall, the whole thing, blah, 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 whatever. But that's where you can snatch those guys that fit what you're trying to do. Jacoby Thomas, right? If you're a man-to-man type, if you're Kansas City, he's a 4-5 guy, he's gonna be able to chase down in our scheme, doesn't matter. We're good. We need a guy that can blitz, that can drop back, that can play corner, that can read, that can hit somebody. And it's a completely different bit. So that all becomes really heavy, and these guys are all going to have holes, right? 4th, 5th round, 6th round. You're going to love a lot about them, but there's going to be a couple things where you're like, I'm not too sure about this. But that's where you pick them.
Yeah,
right?
That's why they're that right. That's why
where they belong.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
take a chance on a guy that, once you get into that third round, man, it's like just pick guys that you like and can fit the scheme. Because
I
there's 15 guys there's 15 guys a year, 20 guys a year where you're like, whoa, no, no brainers. The rest of them, I don't know, man. It's obviously, it's so much more of an art than it is a science. Because if a spreadsheet and AI could figure out what you need, like if arm length really mattered, is it a coincidence that you have to have, somebody with, what was the deal with the defensive end? No one with under 31-inch arms has made it to a Pro Bowl
Reuben Bain.
or had double digit sacks, the whole thing. It's like, yeah. Okay. So what, the guy gets 9 sacks a year for the next 10 years. Great. It's tough because that data's out there. And if the kid doesn't pan out, it's not because his arms are too short. I guarantee it. Gosh darn tell you that if that kid does not make it in the NFL, it has it's like, man, he would be, if his arms were 2 inches longer, this kid would be a Pro Bowl player. No.
But I think like
forget
the thing you
that's
said there.
That's why I hate the hyper focus on certain things. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the thing you said there that, is the takeaway for me and has been now as I've just watched it year after year is it is so much art and science because there are so many pieces. There is the production piece, the measurables piece, the mental piece, the psychological piece. You are literally, it is the most new. It's hiring human beings, like people watching this show, listening to this show. You're hiring staffers. You're not always going to be perfect. That's just part of what this process is.
Right.
But it's interesting to me, like, to have the conversation.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Jadeveon Clowney. Was he picked too high?
He's had a pretty stellar
Tell me
career.
about his career.
I think it's been pretty. I want to look up the numbers, but I feel like Jadeveon Clowney. Maybe you would hope that he is the All-Pro consistently year after year, but he's put together what, a 10-year career. Right. I'm looking this up right now, but
I bring him up only.
Yeah, 2014. He's had 66 career sacks. He's had 3 Pro Bowls. It hasn't been legendary, but it's a pretty effective career.
Yeah, and I bring him up only because he was athletically probably the biggest no-brainer from a defensive line or defensive standpoint in recent history, right? So again, you check all these boxes, and this guy checked every box. He would be a spreadsheet warrior's dream, right? There's no holes in this kid's anything, and he had a good career, not Hall of Fame, not, you know what I mean? Not legendary, not Chris Jones, right? But had a good career. So it's all, again, that's the essence of the whole bit, right?
Yeah.
And knowing people, getting the right people. And the problem is, man, these guys have, again, what makes you laugh makes you cry. You got the guy out there who's willing to throw his body around, doesn't care. He's just out there killing stuff, blowing things up. Well, that guy can't just not many guys can just turn that off when they get out into public, right? So sometimes those guys have off the field issues. Well, maybe, I don't know.
No doubt.
It's kind of the most fun part of the whole thing, but it's a human game. We're dealing with human beings. These are human beings. So, AI if you want, data if you want, but the bottom line is it's an art, an absolute, complete, and total art form.
And I get, like, if you're trying to use the science to make better decisions, I get why you would think that way. So it's interesting. I do want to ask you, because we haven't talked about this, and I would imagine once the Vikings signed Kyler Murray, you watched a lot of the tape, or at least watched some of the tape. And I don't know how recent that's been, but for me, the most interesting question at the time, and the most interesting question to me still, is what is the marriage between this player and his play style and his tendencies going to look like with an offense of its play style and tendencies and themes? And so I just will pose it to you of having watched some of the tape, knowing Kevin O'Connell's offense at a very intricate level. What do you think about what that marriage can be, will be, what you would want it to be?
I think it's not going to be the offense we saw with Sam Darnold a couple of years ago. It's not going to be 5 and 7 step drop back, double move, getting down the field, progressive reading type thing. I think there's just some physical limitations there that just it won't be. So you have to adapt. You have to adapt to what you have. Watching Kyler Murray, there's a couple things that stand out. One is he's a very accurate passer, very accurate passer. I remember saying that exact same thing in a game in Minnesota a couple years ago. I was surprised at how accurate he was. That bodes well for this offense. That's something that's one of the first things Kevin O'Connell said when he took the job and was talking about the quarterback position. He said, you got to be accurate. So he has that. In 2 seasons ago, when he was with the Cardinals and had a lot of success, they moved him around quite a bit, rolled him out, bootleg, play action, those kinds of things. He has the ability to scramble and extend a play and then still get the ball downfield, meaning he'll get to the top of his drop, take 1 or 2, 3 steps up or out, and then still deliver the route on time because it takes a little bit longer it takes a while for that route to develop. So instead of standing tall in the pocket like you would see Sam Darnold do, right? Standing tall and waiting, he's going to move. He's going to step up. He's going to do some of those things. And when he does that, this isn't again, and this isn't the what do you call it? The Velcro drill where you're making stuff up as you go. This is him stepping up 2, 3 steps to the side, eluding the pass rush and getting the ball where it needs to be in a progression of routes that are down the field. I love that about him. I think those two things are going to make him and can make him a very productive quarterback in this system. His ability to run, that's interesting. What Kevin O'Connell brought up, but just base downs and how they defend Justin Jefferson. You can maybe do some things. Whoever's at quarterback, and I think the one thing is that you got to get Justin Jefferson going again. I mean, Justin Jefferson had 2 touchdowns last year.
Crazy.
Right? You're not going to get all these double teams all the time, but people are going to pay less and less attention to him if they're not worried about him, if you can't get him the damn football. So that's going to be big. It's going to be big. You have $40 million standing out there. You've got to get this kid the football. You've got to make him a star again. So that part of it is huge, the rapport with him. He's a 2-to-1 touchdown interception guy. When he throws interceptions, most of the time they are when he's trying to do too much, when he's scrambling or moving around and trying to do too much. I really think if there was one thing I wish trait that he would pick up on is if the play's not there, just get rid of the damn football.
Yeah. And I feel like I feel like that was a progression for Sam here, frankly.
Yes. And I've got some numbers I want to maybe get to, but in the grand scheme of things with this team, and I'm trying to think if I got them written, which notebook I got them written on. But in the grand scheme of what kind of ails this team or this offense, I have all these right here. Got it right here in front of me. Turnovers. Okay? Turnovers. You look at 2025. We had 30 gives. 30 gives. I'm not talking about, the plus minus here. I'm talking about just gives. He had 30 in 2025, 21 interceptions, led the NFL by 2. 21 interceptions. You cut that number in half. You just cut that number in half. and that'll get you 1 or 2 football games. And we were 1 or 2 football games away from making the playoffs, right? 2024, we had 21 gives, so 9 less, but 12 interceptions and 9 fumbles. We need that interception number to be around there. 2023, when we had the quarterback issues, again, 34 turnovers, 19 interceptions, and 15 fumbles. That was the fumble year. I don't know why, but 2023 was the fumble year. 2022, we had 23 gives.
Yeah.
Right? We've been in the bottom in the last 4 years. We've been in the bottom 10 3 times in gives, but never been in the top half of the league. The highest we've been in gives total is 17th. I understand we have an aggressive offense. I understand we may turn the ball over more because of that.
Yeah,
that's fine. But you need to be in the 15 number. You can't be in the 25s, 27s, 32. We just we're turning the ball over too much. And if Kyler Murray can just not turn the damn ball over, that alone is a huge step. I don't care about who he drafted. I don't care about who's the GM. I don't care about any of that. Just quit turning the damn ball over. It's really that simple, Alec. It is.
No, I mean it's the simple. Most. It's the most.
You'll be more competitive. You'll be right in there.
I say it all the time. It's the most predictive stat to winning is if you look at the turnover margin at the end of a game. It will predict who won the game at the most accurate level of any other statistic you can look at. It's that clear. I do think, to the point you made, there is like I don't know how else is like, there's like an equator line between balancing the aggressiveness of the passing game versus the recklessness of that turnover margin. I think it's dependent on play calling, quarterback, offensive line, but finding that equator, to use that word, is going to be so critical to what happens this year and beyond. You're really sharp to bring it up because I do. When you hear those numbers of 31 gives, it hurts probably for Kevin O'Connell more than anybody. But it's very accurate.
Yeah, and yes, and let's take a look too. What kind of goes hand in hand with all this? Sacks. Last year we gave up 60 sacks. The Las Vegas Raiders gave up 64. So we were only 4 behind them. We were second most.
It's not good.
No. And what's interesting is sack percentage. The Raiders were 11.1%. We were 11%.
Mm-hmm.
11%. Second highest. So it's like the sack percentage and the sack part of it, because those all go hand in hand. We see it on defense all the time. Get pressure on the quarterback. That's Brian Flores' bit. Make the quarterback uncomfortable. Just make him uncomfortable. However we got to do that, we're going to do that. I don't care if I got a zero blitz. I don't care. I'm going to go. I'm aggressive enough and creative enough that I'm going to find a way to make you uncomfortable, and that's going to get us turnovers. Conversely, on offense, we've got to protect the quarterback better. A scrambling quarterback will help that. However, like I said, I don't want to see him running around making things up and guys doing the the Velcro drill where they're breaking off and doing that's all fine and dandy. I like this. That's why I want to differentiate between him moving in the pocket and him just pulling the thing down and trying to scramble. Or you've seen the highlights of him, rolling around here and doing this and looking like Fran Tarkington. We don't want him looking like Fran Tarkington. Okay. That's why I'm going back to, if he can read and see things, and if it's not there, just get rid of the ball, throw it away. I mean, nobody threw the ball away more than the Los Angeles Rams. Nobody. They led the league. It's
interesting.
They also led the league in touchdowns.
It is interesting.
Get rid of it. Stafford.
I do think the early down. I mean, you talked about, and we could talk about this later for hours, but like the early down marrying. If defenses want to allocate multiple defenders to Justin Jefferson, then that probably means you got an advantageous box, and forcing defenses to work within that push pull of how do we defend the run while also allocating guys, adjusting, like that is going to be one
Right.
of the stories of 2026. So I don't know if you got one thing on that, but I've taken too much of your
Yes.
time.
No. This is good. This is fun. The other part of it's the running game. All right. Nothing really has changed in our running game and our running back room, right? Are we going to be able to run the ball well enough to make teams, make defenses make a decision? Meaning,
Bingo.
It's one thing to be able to get. It's one thing to be able to get 100 yards on the ground in 25 attempts. It's another thing to get 100 yards on the ground with 15 attempts. Okay. When you do that, you start making defenses, you push them to make a decision to say, we got to start pulling some guys and going with more 5-man fronts and doing some other things to stop the run here because the run's killing us. That's the part. That's probably one of my biggest questions, I think, going into the season. Damon Claiborne. Unbelievably fast. Not super shifty and everything. I'll say this though. He's a guy where you're like, man, you get him the ball in space, look out. He can do something with it. I'll say this right now. In what is it, May something?
May 20th, Pete.
Damon Claiborne has to, ball security is his number one thing. And I'm not the head coach, but I mean, if I'm a coach, I'm going to look at him and say, son, if you do not fumble the football, you will be a very good running back for this team for a very, very long time. Meaning that's the one thing he's got to work on. That's the only thing that showed up watching him on film is just ball security.
I think he had 5 or 6 fumbles this past season. Oof. So I think you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Ball security is a big thing for him, so and we'll see. But that's what I'm excited about. Like, it's when I'm watching the preseason. He's going to make a big run. It's going to be like, hey, did he hold on to it? All right, good. We're good. As long as he holds on, as long as he comes at the end of the preseason game, he has 15 carries and no fumbles. I don't care how many yards he got. I think that's good.
That's awesome.
It's good.
No, it's funny because I want to have you on. We hadn't talked in a while. We've gone 45. We could do this for another 45 minutes. But I do think it is a nice taste of. I think it's a really nice taste of what the conversation is going to look like come August. And I mean, I was pumped to see that the Ravens are going to be here for joint practices. I think that's sweet. I think that's going to be a blast to be to be in person for, but I can't wait. That's why we just did 45 minutes.
Yeah,
So thanks for doing it.
Interesting point. Minter, the head coach for, is it Jesse Minter, right?
Yes. Yep.
The head coach for the Ravens. His dad, Rick Minter, was my defensive coordinator at Notre Dame.
Wow.
Rick Minter he left Notre Dame to go to he became the head coach at Cincinnati in 1994. Yes, it was 94. And then 93 and then 94. So, so I have, not that it's a huge connection or anything, but it's just kind of it's interesting that Rick Minter, and if Jesse's anything like his dad, the defense will be so complicated. The guys don't even know what the hell they're doing.
Well, I don't know if it's so complicated. I think they know what they're doing.
That's a whole nother story. No, Rick was awesome.
That's awesome. Well, Pete, thanks for hopping on. We'll talk soon. Always enjoy it. Looking forward to seeing you at some point over the next couple months. Should be fun.
Where?
The practice field. Come on.
There's nothing going on. There's nothing going on until July. Was it or August? I mean,
mandatory.
When are they starting camp? What, August 1st?
August, late July. Late July. All right. Talk soon.
Okay. We'll see you then.
And that'll do it for episode 169 of the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate Pete hopping on and spending his time. I'd be curious from you guys, what did you find most interesting from that conversation? What stood out to you? What do you want to hear more about? Who do you want to hear from? Toss me those on social media at Alec_Lewis, at Alec Lewis Show on Instagram. you can toss them in the comment section below while you also subscribe. And appreciate First Resource Bank for their presenting sponsorship, Pro MN Athletics, great clips. Unreal, the clothing brand, which I am always repping as I record these shows and spend time around the Twin Cities. That'll do it for this week's shows. We'll be back next week, perhaps with Vikings GM news. So stay tuned for some of that. Enjoy the weekend. Hope the weather is phenomenal. And we will talk to you very, very soon.